All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another great edition of our Franchise Your Business webinar series. My name is Tom Dufour. I'm the CEO of Big Sky Franchise Team. And if you're new to us or you haven't been with us in a while, just give you a quick overview and state of our session here. So for our live stream webinars, the intent and purpose is to help give you some practical tools and knowledge to walk away with that you could apply to either your current business, your franchise company, to help you be a better franchisor. If you're looking for a recording of this, if you see this and you say, boy, this is so great, I'd love to share this with my partner or colleague or someone else, this will be republished on our YouTube channel, which you can go to Big Sky Franchise Team, subscribe to us there. It'll be published in about a week. And then we also have a podcast that we publish this on called Franchise Your Business. It's the Franchise Your Business podcast, available at whichever your favorite podcast listening service happens to be. And so with that, I'd love to go ahead and jump into this session as folks are loading in here. And I'm pleased to introduce to you Lauren, who's the co-founder of SMAPN, and I'm excited for him to come on to be talking about territory mapping and mapping for your franchise systems. He's the co-founder, and he's all about the entrepreneurial life. He's really into data and analytics and loves using them to help franchise systems grow. So with that, Lauren, I'd love to turn things over to you and give a welcome and introduction here.
Hi, Tim. Thank you very much for this great opportunities. I'm really happy to be here tonight. I say because it's a bit late. I'm based in France, so I'm the co-founder of SMAPN. It's a mapping tool that was designed for franchisors to help them design, optimize, and manage their franchise territories. So it kind of combines mapping tools and data, and it's specifically tailored for emerging small and medium-sized franchisors. So it means it's very user-friendly, help them get straight to the point, and offers a very competitive and flexible pricing model that can fit the specific needs. So SMAPN what's
I was just going to jump in real quick, Lauren, and just say, we would, just as a quick introduction for the attendees to know, you and I were introduced actually through a mutual client, someone who connected us together, a franchisor, said, hey, Tom, you need to speak with Lauren with SMAPN and get a conversation started. And that led to our conversation. And really what I've liked so much is how you are really focused for that emerging and growing franchise system, that you've really been designed for that. And so that's one of the reasons, one of the many I was excited to have you on. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just thought I'd share that.
Yeah. Thanks. So on the SMAPN was created 5 years ago. We currently have over 800 active customers worldwide, mainly in France, but we now have a quarter of them based in the US. So as we have daily discussions with our customers, it allows us to learn a lot about the challenges concerning franchise territories. So we decided to compile all our learnings and write a guide to help franchisors quickly become proficient in this area. So this guide is not just about SMAPN's insights. So it also includes contributions from the Big Sky franchise team. So I want to thank you, Tom, for your significant input. I want to take a moment to thank you for your contributions. I mean, working together and incorporating your insight has been really great. So that's why I believe you will also have interesting contributions during my presentation. So please, Tom, don't hesitate to interrupt me, as you're very knowledgeable on this topic. So today, what I want to share is a summary of our findings and help you understand the best practices for franchise territory design, share the do's and don'ts. So, and if you're interested in more details, so don't hesitate to ask for your copy of the guide. It's a free ebook, so I'll be happy to send you a copy, or you can ask Tom. So I'll try to also make this presentation actionable. I want you to be able to apply some of the tips I'll give you when designing your next territory. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to interrupt and ask. All right, let's go. So before we start, I like to introduce some of, different type of territory, introduce you to some concept that will be very useful to design your franchise territory. So first definition, what's a franchise territory? So it's a specific area within which a franchisee is granted the exclusive or partially exclusive right to operate. The idea is to clearly define in which market they can operate without direct competition, or provide them a kind of exclusivity. So there are different flavors of franchise territories. So mainly two families. You have exclusive territories. So that's these territories offer the best protection for the franchises. So it ensures that franchisors will not grant new franchises in the territory and cannot sell, I mean, directly or via physical locations or online. And then you have protect territories. So they're in the middle. You can have different degrees of protection, like franchisors cannot add a new location, but he can sell online, for instance. So you have very different degrees of protection. So once we've introduced this, also another kind of area that will be very useful to build your territories is to know about catchment areas, or sometimes trade areas. So the catchment area for any location determines the addressable market, the addressable area for the franchisee. Um, so this is mainly used for fixed location businesses, like for instance, it's the area where your customers will be coming from. So if you have a restaurant, it's like how far your customers will be coming from, what will be your influence area. So that's usually where very often the driven distance, the in which most of your customers will come from. Okay, for instance, for a restaurant, let's say 10 minutes or 15 minutes drive time is the drive time radius within which the most of your customers will come from. And you also have, for mobile businesses, it's a bit different. So here we talk about service areas. So it's the area where the franchisee will be able to service its customers. For instance, if you deliver services at home care, so then you need to decide like how far will my franchises drive to serve my customers. This is very related to operation costs, so we'll talk about it later. So why? Now, why I think it's very important to define franchise territories. The first thing, of course, is to secure your candidates, and they invest significant amounts. They take risks, so the idea is to minimize the risk for them, and to reduce the risks and have help them make the decision to start a business with you. And on your side also, it will help you optimize your coverage. It's very important that you get the best of the potential on the country you're working in. So, I mean, defining properly your territories will help you optimize the coverage and make sure that you don't have white spaces and you don't leave money on the table. Also, it will help you avoid cannibalization. So it helps you check that you won't have overlaps between different franchises, and of course prevent conflicts between the different franchises. It can also help to then assign leads or online sales. Like if you define territories, it's then very easy to assign the incoming leads that you can have on your website, for instance. So, anything to add, or?
No, no, I think this is good so far.
So in terms of timing, when is the right time to define the territory? So the different ways to go in the very beginning, what you usually do is by opportunity. Like I have a new candidate, have a new franchises, that I will work on defining his territory, and very often, and I think Tom, you really agree on that also, but it's very interesting define this territory along with your candidate. What's your insight on this, Tom?
Yeah, so I agree. As you're finalizing territory for sure, you're going to have a general footprint in your item 12 outline, but the finalizing that is going to be done generally with the candidate, the zip codes or whatever specific uh, parameters you're using to start breaking down that territory with.
Then in the beginning, the risk is that probably you will oversize your territories, which is probably not that big an issue. And better have oversized territories that undersize undersized territories, because the most important for you is to have successful franchises at the beginning. That's the priority number one. So it doesn't matter if you leave some money on the table in the beginning and have two big territories. You something you can adjust later on, I think. And
Yeah,
yes,
I
Tom.
was just going to say I agree. I that's something I it, have a pretty strong conviction on is it when in doubt, especially for a growing or a new franchise system or a growing franchise system, you're better served to provide your franchisees with larger territory versus a too small of a territory to be successful. So that's always been my general philosophy on that is when in doubt, better to have it be a little bit bigger
Mhm.
as you're figuring out by the time you get to 50, 75, 100 franchises, you have a lot more history and understanding of it to precisely measure what your territory footprint should be. But prior to that, I mean, even with 5 or 10, it's still hard to gauge exactly what that's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So once you have more track record, more data, then you can even start working upfront, like defining territories even before you have candidates. Once you get there, it can be interesting because you can then, I mean, optimize like logistics, have define really a territorial strategy, area or regions to prioritize to optimize logistics or even the time. I mean, network management requires your team to move to visit your franchises and so on. So you need to have strategy to optimize your operating and network management costs. And even defining, yeah, a real development plan, like having I mean, you can go even farther, like having a full strategy for the whole country, define all the different steps where on your development strategy.
Yeah. And Lauren, one thing I'd like to say just to our attendees that are on live with us here, please feel free if you've got a question or a thought or a comment or you're wondering about, feel free to enter that into the Q&A or the chat box, or you can hit the raise hand feature and I can go ahead and mute you if you'd prefer to ask that live in discussion. So I forgot to mention that. Please feel free to go ahead and do that as this is a live session and it can make it interactive here.
Okay, and then concretely, how you should define your franchise territories. What a few things you need to have to do before working on your first territory design. So first, you will need to analyze your existing locations to define the criteria that you will be able to use then to design your next territories. So first, choose your reference locations. Maybe all of them if you don't have many locations. That's fine. Use both locations which are performing well as less performing locations. That's very important. First thing then is to know your typical influence area, which means either your typical catchment area if you're a fixed location business, or if you're mobile business, then your typical service area. So how do you do that? Well, ideally, if we talk about catchment area, ideally you will use customer data. So I'll share my screen and show you concretely how you can do that. All right. So here I am. So we're in Colombia. I have an existing, let's say I have an existing location in Colombia here. So what I want to know is what's my real catchment area? So what's the area within which I have most of my most of my customers? So what I'll do is I'll map out my customer if I have a customer database. Uh, and then starting from my location, what I
And
do,
and Lauren,
yeah,
real quick, for mapping out your customers. So for someone who's tuning in and they want to say, "Well, I love all those red dots, Lauren. That's super cool. I'd love to see that for me." So if how would they do that? They just pull if they have a customer list of their customers where they're coming from
yeah,
or
you
zip codes are coming
just
from, and
just just need
you
a
can enter that
list
in.
of yeah, you can just need a list of customers with the addresses or even zip codes. Better with the addresses, it's more accurate.
Okay.
And just import an Excel file and there you go. And
Okay.
it's very useful to from the start to gather as much customer data as you can. So once you have that, let's from your location, what you can do is draw a drive time area, for instance, let's say 15 minutes, and then here I've imported, it's just an example, 100 dots. I have a database with 1,000 customers. So what I look is what's the drive time within which I have 80 or 90% of my customers. So here 15 minutes is not enough because I have 600 customers in this area. So I'll just edit the area, have a look at, let's say, 20 minutes, for instance. So here I'm close, yeah, to 800 customers, close to 80% of my customers. So maybe my catchment area is maybe around 21 or 22 minutes drive time. If I if I do this for all my locations, then I'll be able to know the typical drive time. So there you go, more than 800. If I take the average, I know that, okay, for any new location that we open, I know that I can have a reach around 22 minutes drive time. So that's what I will look at to assess the potential, for instance. Okay. For
Okay.
if you have a, sorry, Tom, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to let you know when once you get through this walkthrough, we've got a good question here in from someone from one of our attendees.
Okay. Just to finish then, if you're mobile business, you probably do it differently. It's up to you to decide how far you want to go. So it depends on your operating costs. So that's a bit different. Most of the times you will use either drive time or even driven distance, and it's up to you to decide. I mean, what's the maximum distance? Is it 30 miles, 20 miles that you can drive without having too much cost and keep being profitable, keep your margins. So then it's a different, more cost approach if you're a mobile business to define what's the maximum distance I want to drive to serve my customers. Maybe for the question, if it's on this concerning this
Yeah.
topic.
Well, it's related. I think it's a little more specific to his
Mhm.
industry. So Jeremy asks and says that they've got a home building company that builds on their client's land. So the client owns the property and they come
Mhm.
and build on there. And he said that their experience is more retail than the typical uh, more retail than the typical so they operate more with a franchise mindset. So he asked, what suggestions do you have for selecting a new sales center where um, you're going to essentially be bringing customers into this, likely, and I'm presuming into the sales center. And he said we propose locations to be a minimum of 2 hours drive away. So do you have a recommendation for that, and uh, based off of what he's asking there?
Yeah, it depends if you have a showroom and you need to attract customers, then I mean you're serving customers in a way because you're going to their land and build home for them. But if you have a showroom, then people need to come and visit you. So the catchment area is also important. So um, you have to then I would do what we just did. I mean, having a look at the customer database for the existing locations and take a look at like how far are my customers coming from.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. What one of the things one of the questions I had in watching you and thinking about Jeremy's question here as well. So you this example that you showed is in Columbia, South Carolina, which is great. For many franchises, it's probably going to be a small market in terms of number of franchisees. There might only be one if you're a services, or one or two, and retail might just be one as well, depending on if it's boutique retail or niche retail, or if it's more mass market. So, is there any way to maybe do an example or provide an example in a metro such as a top 10 metro, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., where you might have a city population, you might have a few in the suburbs, where you kind of have population spread out between densely populated in an urban center in a big city, and then you have the suburban sprawl around, and how something like that could look with, for example, the data set that you were sharing or talking about.
Well, it really depends if on your business and the kind of customers you're targeting. So I don't have your data sample for a big city. I just chose a
Yeah,
random sample in this
yeah,
city.
I see what you're saying. Okay, got it, got it.
Um, but that's why also having your customer data and mapping them, having them onto a map could be very interesting, and you can get a lot of insight to see, are they coming from the city centers? Are they coming from the suburbs? I mean, where are my
Right.
customers coming from? That's something that's really useful.
Well, maybe then what you could do, and I don't know if you can do this, but for example, you found that 22-mile drive radius.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking for if I'm a franchisor, if Columbia, South Carolina is my home territory, well, let's say I have a franchisee that's going to buy in Charlotte, North Carolina, right?
Mhm.
They might be looking to purchase. Could I apply that 22 minute or that 22-mile drive range to a Charlotte, for example, that's just due north there on I-77? Um,
So
would I be able to apply that 22-mile drive radius, or 22-minute drive radius to another city as I help sort out or look for locations for other franchisees?
yeah, sure, that's the idea. I mean, the idea is to look at the average catchment area you have on your existing locations, and then you can use this information for your next locations. Like if in most of your existing locations, people are generally coming within 20 minutes drive time, if that's your conclusion, then you know that for your next location, you can use this as a reference to define your potential catchment area. That's the goal, yeah.
Great.
So once you have this information, and this is if you have customer data for the catchment area. If you don't, well, what you can do is at least ask your customers. Like if you don't have their addresses, or because you run a restaurant and you don't have all the data, then you just have a survey, run a survey with your customers and ask them like, how long did you drive to come here? I mean, how far are you coming from? It will give you a first good idea of your typical catchment area. It's the first step.
Yep. Great.
So once you know that, you have to define to know your design criteria. So first of all, define your ICP, your ideal customer profile. So you probably know about it already. I mean, you're targeting young people or elderly people at home or whatever. Something you probably already know. Um, and then you need to quantify them. It's like, okay, you're targeting all the people. So now, how many of them do you need to have in your catchment area or in your territory to make sure that your franchise will be viable? So now the idea is define your criterias and quantify them. So if you're on B2C, it will be demographics mainly, like minimum five, minimum 100,000 people, minimum income is this and or so. And if you're in B2B, then it could be a minimum number of type of businesses that you're targeting. So to quantify them, I recommend to look both at successful locations. So for instance, here, if we say, yeah, this is our catchment area. So I will look at existing locations and I will look at my numbers. Okay. The locations that have good results generally have a minimum of 500,000 inhabitants, 1,000 or whatever, and the average income is this, and so our employment data is this, or whatever are the criteria that are relevant to you. It really depends on your business, on your
And
targets.
And Lauren, I'm going to interrupt here for a second because I think this is significant. How simple and easy. This is one of the reasons I like what you how your program works. So, just for those that are attending here, I know sometimes it's hard to follow with a new technology, a new system. But what he's doing here is he's looking in on this 22-minute drive radius around the location, the center location there, and he's able to pull in within that 22 minutes, he's able to pull up all of this data: population, employment, number of household, how many they can do all of this median household income, number of occupied housing dwellings, right? That's available here, housing construction per year, right? And for Jeremy, who is talking about new home builds, I mean, maybe this might be valuable to know. Is there a trend up or down this year, last year, whatever? What's going on in that community that you're looking to serve? So you know, if and you can assess if you see new homes, right? For example, new homes trending up, well, people are buying. If it's trending down, well, is it that they're not buying, or is it that they're one of the big home builders left out of the area, or decided to do something different? I don't know, right? So it helps provide you with some additional information as you start looking to plot out new territories in different areas that you're not as familiar with.
So the idea is to quickly, I mean, analyze your existing location. So the one which are doing well will give you the some numbers that you can use. You know that if you have these numbers, your next location will be viable. Sorry. On the opposite, if you have locations that are doing not so well, it's also very interesting to know, because this will give you the numbers you need to avoid, like not many inhabitants, or this revenue is too low. We know it doesn't work, or it doesn't work so well. So it will give you the lower limits, an idea of the lower limits. And that's also very interesting to know.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So and I just think it can be a really useful tool. And again, in the beginning, if you have 1, 2, 3 locations or territories, or even less than 10, you know, this will help you gather that data to start sorting through and figuring out what is the best structure for me to what is the best general territory number for me to start putting into item 12 of my FTD to start building this around for my franchisees in the system.
And so these are the main things you look at, but there are also other criterias like can be interesting to also look at different things like brands also that have similar targets. I mean, they don't sell the same services or the same products, but they're targeting the same people. So it can be interesting to know if they're around. So what you can do, for instance, is okay, so we're at Starbucks, because I know it works pretty well if I'm close to a Starbucks. It can be very interesting to know where have Starbucks, where interesting locations, and do I have enough Starbucks around that will tell me, okay, it's a good idea to be around, to be there. It's also interesting to look at prescriptors or referrers. You also maybe have some businesses that can drive you some business or send you some leads. So you can look for almost anything within the app. So it means that I know that doctors or whatever
Yeah,
are interested.
Lauren, I'm going to interrupt for a second here with a question that came in. The attendee said, they're a home care company, a home care services company, they're servicing seniors, and they're wondering what other criteria might you be able to look at? For example, senior population. Would you be able to look at that? And as you're going into nurses and doctors, I wonder if number of nurses and doctors, or maybe number of senior care facilities or senior homes. Are you able to dig into things like that?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, so you can use either demographics to know, yeah, the age of the population, but then you can look for that. That was my third point. So
Okay.
the interesting neighbors, mirroring brands. The second, also prescriptors or referrers, but the third being the competitors also. So you can look for competitors. You can look for almost any kind of business in the app. So it's double-sided. I mean, if you have competitors around, it's a sign that there is a market. So it's interesting. But if you have too many, so it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off, and yeah, you have to know
So,
to know what's a good trade-off.
so Laurent, then are you saying, for example, right, you put Starbucks in there, so someone who's, for example, for the question about the home care companies servicing seniors, they could search by population, let's say 55 plus or 65 plus for an age limit or range, or if that's what they're looking for, and get a sense of that, and then they could maybe look for, maybe there's another senior care franchise
Exactly.
that they want to see. Is this, do they have locations in this area or franchisees in this area? They could type in and search by that
Sure,
company.
you can search by category, like type of business, or by specific brands. So you can
Okay,
look for almost anything.
great. Thank you.
So so once you know your criteria, like okay, a successful franchise territory is minimum 100,000 people, minimum income is this, and so or minimum whatever numbers, whatever criteria. But you need to know your criteria. And the last thing before then we will start build new territory is pick the right geography. So different ways to define your territory. So I've seen a lot of franchisors use simple radiuses, distance radiuses, like starting from here and just draw a circle. Okay, the issue with the circle approach is if you are, I'll do something very weird. Doesn't matter. Just show an example, but it's very difficult to avoid having white spaces using circles. I mean, you cannot optimize your territory if you use circle, and they do not correspond to something tangible like drive time that really represent. I mean, my catchment area. So I do not really recommend to use them, but I know still lots of franchisors do. You can also manually draw a territory. So I can say I want the territory like this. Okay, why not? Why not? But then it's more difficult to handle, to clearly define within the contracts. So you need the map, you need it. So it's not really convenient. And you could think also that it could be interesting to directly use the catchment area. Why not? But it's the same here as the manually drawn area. It's much easier to communicate using a clearly defined area like administrative boundaries, which is the one I really recommend. And most of the time, people use zip codes in the US. They're much more convenient to clearly communicate on the territories, avoid any discussions because 20 minutes drive time depends on the car. I drive very fast, so I can go farther. This doesn't make sense. It's better I use zip codes. They're also very easy to use them to target your marketing afterwards or no. So I really recommend using the zip codes to define your territories. Anything to add, Tom, on this or?
No, no. I mean, I think I think that's right. I mean, I think when you take a look at this, it's this. If, for example, this 22 mile or 20, I keep calling it mile, 22 minute drive radius that we're looking at on the screen here, you can take this and within this uh, determine the generals. You can see the zip codes that generally are going to fall within, and then start to figure out the zip codes that are part of it. And I like zip codes a lot just because they don't change very often. It's easy for marketing purposes. And that's the big thing when you start thinking about marketing, whether it's every door direct through the postal service, whether it's Facebook ads or Google ads or any kind of digital marketing. If you can start zeroing in with zip codes, it becomes a lot easier because then these digital forms can pull IP addresses from various different zip codes, or people are searching, or businesses within there. Most things are going to use a zip code to break it down. So I find it to be very helpful.
Yes. So now we can start designing our first territory. Let's go. We have everything,
Let's do
everything
it.
we need. Let's do it. So what's the minimum size? The minimum size will will be told by your design criteria, your number. So if you know it's a minimum of 100,000 inhabitants, this will define your minimum size. I mean, the criteria we've just defined before. What's your maximum size? Well, at least you should try to not to go further. Well, catchment area, because if you, for instance, here my catchment area, if I give zip codes which are far away, there are very few chances that anyone will come to my store, to my location. So I'm leaving money on the table. I won't have a good penetration of this part of these areas. So I'd better avoid providing areas within which no customer can reach my location. So that's will give me an approximation of my maximum area. So that's why I'll keep it here. And what I do then, I'll use the zip codes and I'll define a territory, selecting the zip codes, okay? Using both, having a look at maximum areas. I don't need to go much farther than this drive time, than my catchment area or my service area if I deal with service area. And what I'll do is just I look at the numbers on the right and say, okay, I need I have no idea, but let's say I need 300,000 inhabitants. So I just select a few zip codes and create my area. Check that I have the numbers I need, like the minimum. Select this one too. So here I've just created a territory within which I have a bit more than 300,000 inhabitants. Perfect. Love it. Just finish. So that's my first territory. So because maybe in this case I have space for 2 franchises here. So then I can add another area for another franchisee. Make sure that it's viable, that I have the numbers too. So I'll select a few zip codes and see what numbers I have. And I can iterate, I can modify them, edit them, and so on. And then easily make sure that they don't overlap, of course. Okay, maybe I'll add one more. One more. There you go. Okay, 2 territories. So now I know that I am not going too far. It's within approximately close to my typical catchment area or service area. And I know I have the number to be successful. So this is the proper size for my territory. Anything to add, Tom, or?
No, I think it looks great, and now you can see that the couple of the territories drawn out there with these lines and showcased, and you can see exactly what it looks like. I think this is a great example of what this would look like, especially for a market the size of Columbia, South Carolina. I think it's great.
So as you've seen, it needs a lot of preparation. Like you need to know your numbers, you need to know your typical catchment area, and so on. But once you have this, it's very quick and easy to work on your next territories design. So there's a few common mistakes that are done, like don't forget to have a look at all your existing locations. Make sure you don't have any overlaps. Don't oversize them like it can be an issue for your future growth if you continue giving too big territories. So don't sacrifice future locations just to close a deal, or give away market potential just to close the deal. Don't try to look for perfection. I mean, it's not easy to have exactly the right numbers. So don't try to be perfect. Just try to be fair with what you're building, and and try to create balanced territory to be fair with your franchises, and this will also avoid conflicts.
Yeah. Yeah, Lauren, I think that's great advice. I think those last two statements. First is the territory, it won't ever be perfect, right? There's just so many factors and variables and things going on that it's unlikely to be perfect. There's just going the reality of it. And second is to be go into this with the idea of fair dealings, or as we say in Big Sky, terms, our number one value here is win-win relationships. So go into it thinking about a win-win, and remembering that you're going to be signing likely a franchise agreement that has an initial 10-year term with 2 5-year terms thereafter. So this could be likely be a 20-year engagement or relationship with this person. So keep that perspective in mind as well as you're going into it. So I think those are two excellent points. Well, I'd love to make sure we have a chance for other questions here, Laurent. Or was there anything else you were hoping to cover or go over before we open this up to
Just
just a
if you have
general
some time,
discussion?
just a last point, if you have some
Yeah,
time,
please.
show how
Yeah,
you can, how once you know your criteria, how you can also look for interesting new locations, like anticipate and look for it. It's very quick. I mean, most of the criteria you look at is your key success factors. Like if you're looking for this kind of revenue, or what you can do is use a heat map just to map your success criteria. So you will look for uh, specific areas where you have the most people or the higher revenue, or you can look for different demographics information, demographics data straight onto the map, so you can look at and prioritize the areas that will be interesting for you. So the heat map is the first way to locate interesting areas, but also, like we've seen before, just looking at your competitors. I mean, that's uh, so here it's a big brand, Starbucks, but you can do with any brand, and it can be very interesting to know where they are. That's where you have potential. These are even mirroring brands. So that's the two last tips I wanted to give. But no, I'm ready for the questions if there's any.
great. Great. Well, thank you very much, Lauren. All right. As we are winding this down here, do we have questions, additional questions, thoughts, comments, discussion points for Lauren? You can go ahead and type that into the chat box, or Q&A, I should say, or hit the raise hand button, and I can unmute you so you can go ahead and ask that question. Well, Lauren, before we go, while we're waiting for questions, how can people find out about what you're doing? They say, well, Lauren, I love what you're doing. I'm interested. Yeah, we
Yeah,
haven't even had that. So where do they go? What do they do?
very easy. Let's just go on smappen.com, SMAPPEN.com. It's a freemium, so you can just give it a try, play around with the app. Of course, it's limited in terms of data, but you can still do a few interesting things with the app free. So just try it out, and if you're interested, just reach out to me or reach out to Tom. He'll give you my contact information, or just get in touch with me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And we did have a question come through that just asked, if someone does happen to sign up, is there live support? How do you support your customers?
So we do have a customer success team, and each customer has a dedicated customer success manager. So there's an onboarding first, so you will have a one-to-one web conference with your customer success manager, and then a follow-up, and you can reach out to him anytime.
Okay, great. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions come through. So again, if you want to reach out to Laurent, you can reach out to me or him directly, and I'll just direct you over to him if you connect with me, if that's just easier for you, for some of our clients that are on the line here. Otherwise, check out smapin.com. We'll include this in the show notes when we post this, as well as a recording. And Laurent, I just want to say thank you very much. This was a great
Thank you,
overview.
Tom.
Yeah, thank you. This was great. And thanks for being up late for us. I know it's after hours for you there in France. So really appreciate you doing that.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.